Happy Wednesday. We are here to talk about projects in Spanish class. And Erin is going to come join me in just a second to share all about how she does projects in her classroom. So I'm going to give it a moment. I see some of you are coming in. Yay. Hi, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Hola. Hey, we are going to talk about projects in Spanish class. So just as you're joining, would you just tell me, like, thumbs up or thumbs down so you'll know, do you use projects in your classroom? Have you ever? Do you use classroom? Yes or no? And I think Erin's about to hop right in here. I see her. There. Yay!
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
Great. I
Thank
see.
you for.
I I just asked if people use projects in their classroom, so they're answering sí or no right now. So I'm so
Awesome.
glad you could come in and share with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. If you hear, Liam is outside with his grandmother, my mother-in-law, right now. And so if you hear any little shrieks, I promise he's supervised. I'm not just letting him run,
Same
but
advice.
it's very loud.
There is running happening upstairs, but it's
Mhm.
supervised running. It's fine.
Yeah, good.
Let's-
Got it.
Yes, yes, yes. Almost always see.
Take a team.
So good. We got lots of people who like projects. Okay, why don't you introduce yourself just in case people haven't met you before?
Sure. So, hi, hola. My name is Erin Coleman. Some people know me as the Engaged Spanish Classroom, the blog, and on TPT. And I have been teaching for 9 years. I'm home this year with my son, Liam, and it has been wonderful. But I'm also very excited to go back to my school in the fall. I've been missing my colleagues and missing my students. So, this year gave me lots of time to reflect on the things that I've loved in my practice and also some things that maybe it might be time to change. So it's been nice to update some things as well. And projects were at the top of that list for me. So I'm glad to talk about those today.
Good. So great timing. And in case anybody watching is new to either of us, up here on the top where the title is, there's a little drop down arrow. You can click there, and that's where you can see both of our names to come follow along. And in case anybody's coming over here from Erin's audience and you haven't met me yet, my name is Ashley. I run Senorita Spanish, which is a blog, and of course, my Instagram, my Teachers Pay Teachers, and where I'm all over the place. So just like Erin, I create resources for secondary Spanish teachers. I'm here to help you. So Erin, oh man, I almost forgot. I have my list here and everything. The grab bag. Erin,
Still going on.
one of the driving forces behind the grab bag, and that is something we're doing right now. Erin, will you give them what is it?
So until the 22nd, are we doing it until Sunday? So it's still available. And honestly, I'm glad it is because I've started downloading the resources, but I have not finished yet. And I need to go back and make sure I don't miss any. But what it is our group, Teach More Spanish. We organize over $100 worth of resources from a variety of us. I think there's 10 or 11 of us involved, and you can grab all of the resources only until Sunday. For absolutely nothing, for absolutely free, and have them to use to help you review at the end of this year or to tuck away for next year. Like me, I'm tucking them away for next year. And yeah, then in the future, they'll also hear from each of us, get updates from us. And I think it's really great. And I love it. I grabbed it myself. So
Same here. First thing I did was ooh.
yep.
I think I'm probably like 3/4 of the way of going through the folder now. So if you're going, what is she talking about? Both Erin and I have posts about it on our profile. It's linked in our right on top where there's a clickable link on your Instagram profile. You can get to it there. If you need a link and you can't find it, feel free to comment on this video and we will help you out.
Robin said she's doing it. That's awesome.
Yay, I'm so glad. I've been hearing really good things from the people who've been getting it. So if you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you go do so. And like Erin said, it's going to be done after this week. Will not. Yeah. So
and also make sure you download, even if you sign up and get your link to download, make sure you actually do download before Sunday, because that will be removed then too. So that's why I need to remember to go back, because I've only gotten through like half. I think you're further than me. So
just been doing a little bit every day. It's a lot. So I've been trying to download and then sort it to where I would be able to use it. So that way next year it's not like, where did they go?
Yeah, you have to actually organize it as you do it. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, so it's
Hola, colega.
Yay. Okay, so we're going to talk about projects. So I have some questions for you about them because I know you use them Well, you use them more than I do, so I'm ready to learn from you about them. So let's just start with, how frequently do you use projects in your classroom?
So it's becoming year after year, I've started using projects more every single year. When I was a first year teacher, I was giving the quizzes and exams from the textbook, like the pages after pages of exams, multiple choice, honestly, way too difficult for my students. And I wish I learned earlier that I didn't have to do it that way. I'm sorry if you can hear Liam, I can hear him. But so as I've grown as a teacher and gotten more comfortable in making my own patterns and my own routines, I've moved away from testing in the traditional way, and I give very frequent quizzes about once a week. But otherwise, my assessments are projects. So I'd say in all of my levels, I typically teach Spanish 1 and 3, but sometimes I also teach Spanish 2. I'd say I use projects 6 to 10 times a year. And then I just give a midterm, we give quarterly exams. So I give an exam at the end of quarter 1, a midterm exam at the end of quarter 2, an exam at the end of quarter 3, and then a final exam. But otherwise in my class, it's projects. And I love it. I'm way happier.
Oh, okay, so how about when it comes to like a digital project versus pen and paper, do you find yourself leaning more one way or the other?
As much as I can, I try to give options. If there's any possible way, like I feel like my default is digital, especially last year, obviously. I know many teachers this year. But if I can ever give an option, I've had students ask, very, very hands-on creative students ask to find a way to do it on paper. And if a student asks me for a different way to do a project, I'm pretty much never going to say no. As long as it's something reasonable, as long as it makes sense and they can still meet the parameters of the project. Like, yeah, I don't want to grade 20 identical projects anyways. I want them to be different. So if a student comes to me and asks to do it on paper, great, I'd love it. But I feel like default digital, just for ease of organization.
Yeah.
Can't lose them if they're on Google Classroom. But lots of other reasons. Digital is definitely my default.
I know at one point in time in the past, I did like a big poster project, and I just remember, and I was a traveling teacher at that point. So I just remember like taking them all, and our offices were downstairs. So, like haul them all downstairs, haul them back up, haul them downstairs. And it was like,
bring the pile home to grade, and then you don't grade them. So then you bring it home, and then you're like, oh no, I'll really grade them tonight. Definitely, for sure. Bring the pile home again. Yeah, digital's way better.
Yep. Okay. How about individual or group projects?
So again, I'm all about student choice. The majority of my projects are individual because I want to see how they do, and not, relying on another student. However, I'd probably say close to half start out in the instructions as a partner or group project. But there's always a caveat in my directions that if they'd like to work on their own, that's completely fine. And I very often adjust the expectations if they decide to work on their own, because if I've designed a project meant to be for 3 people, and a student very kindly comes to me and says, I'm going away this week and I would really like to do it on my own instead of worrying about catching up after or worrying about doing my part, I'll probably lessen it a little bit for them. And I'm also grateful when those students speak up with things like that. So I want to show them that I appreciate that honesty and that like autonomy, that they can stick up for themselves and explain.
Right. And just the confidence to kind of advocate for themselves.
Yeah, advocate, that's the word.
Yeah, that's really good. Be responsible and make that. Okay, so you've talked about this like a couple of times in the last few things. What are your favorite ways to incorporate student choice? Like we talked about kind of digital versus paper and individual versus group. Is there anything else that you do that incorporates student choice?
Yes, I'm gonna put a pin in that just for a second because I see a question about managing Google Translate from Madrid. And so with projects done, digital projects done outside of class, I give them, whenever I give any project, they have time in class to do everything. I break down the expectations day by day of okay, today during the class period, this is what I expect you to get done. Tomorrow, day 2, this is what I expect you to get done. I want to make sure I'm giving them all the time they need in class, and I'm walking around and checking, or if it's digital, checking in Google Classroom, because I find, yeah, if they do take it home, and that, I mean, it's definitely a challenge this year, and you couldn't really work around it if you were hybrid or the students were completely remote and working at home. But when I'm in person, there's no reason that they should be working on it at home, especially if it's a group project. They're supposed to be working together. I always reiterate to them that that does not mean splitting the work. So if you are working with a partner and you're looking at this as, I'm going to do this half and you're going to do that half, I want you both to work on your own and do your own projects. It's not meant to be split. There's no reason you should do it at home. So I just try to keep a close eye on it. I know that that's easier said than done, but I hope that that answered that question. But back to student choice. So yes, digital versus paper, group versus individual. But I also, when I'm making projects, I try to provide structure. Like it could be sentence starters or it could be situations. And I try to give them more options than what I ask them to complete. So if I'm looking for a project on the conditional tense, I have one that's what would you do if si pudieras visitar al cielo? ¿A quién visitarías? And instead of saying, here are 4 situations, I need you to answer all 4, I might give them 10 situations and say, please choose any 4 to 5. I also try to do student choice in the range where I say, please choose any 4 to 5. And you'd be surprised how many students would choose 5 or how many students will do 6, because they like that they have the choice of what they're doing and they're making their own unique project. And that's another way to make sure you're not grading 20 or 30 of the same exact project over and over and over again. So
I like that a lot. It also kind of comes around that problem that sometimes we have where, you know, maybe we give students kind of a short answer prompt and we ask them to write about something and they're like, I don't know what to tell you about this situation, or like maybe they haven't experienced that.
So my answer is going to be super robotic, because this is a very like structured, like too structured of a project, and I can't be creative. You need to leave that room for them.
Yeah,
creative.
Right. So how about when you're incorporating all of that choice and all of this flexibility, how does your grading work, and what does your grading process look like?
So this is another reason why I really love projects more than tests. When you're like, by default, by nature, when you're grading a test, you are looking for, or I'm not like saying everybody necessarily does this, but in general, you are looking for what your students did wrong. You are looking for mistakes. When you're grading a test, you're looking for wrong answers. I love that when I'm grading a project, I'm not looking for things done wrong. I'll have my rubric and my expectations. My school is awesome, and we have a proficiency rubric that our whole department uses, and I love that everybody uses the same one, and it's structured from year to year, and there's a good flow. But anyways, I have that in front of me, and I have my project parameters in front of me, and I'm grading them on what they did do for the project. So what expectations did they meet? Instead of picking out little grammar errors and being like, oh, you conjugated this verb wrong, I'm going to take off a point. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't, not to say it doesn't matter, but it's not your overall project. I want to know what you did accomplish. So I have the project instructions in front of me, and I grade them on what they did accomplish. And it just feels so much better than looking for mistakes. Yeah, and like nitpicking. And it also saves a lot of time. You know, you go through a project once instead of, I actually mentioned this in the blog post today that I did about review and projects. When I used to do oral exams and have students record, I would find myself listening to the recordings multiple times and picking out little things, which first of all is not healthy for your work-life balance because you're listening to recordings over and over. But when I started doing the oral exams in person, I was giving my students more credit and I wasn't being so nitpicky. And so I just feel like it's such a healthier approach for me and a much more positive experience for the students too.
So when I know that this is, you said it was coming from your district. When you are talking about those proficiency rubrics, are students seeing those in level 1, 2, 3, all the way through? So it's something that they're kind of familiar with, and then they are just kind of building.
Yes, and we use it for every assessment, more or less. So teachers use it on quizzes if there's writing or speaking. It's mostly for the communicative aspects of it. So it doesn't always tie into projects because that's more presentational. But I just love that, like you said, students are familiar with them. They've seen it from Spanish 1. They get to see where they were at the beginning of the year when we do a writing sample and then compare their same writing sample at the end. They see the rubric, how they've grown. It makes them feel good. And again, that's focusing on what they can do instead of, well, you missed this, you didn't do this, you spelled that word wrong. I would not continue as a teacher if I worked in a place that was the attitude. So
We do have a question that comes in that asking if they could have a copy of your rubric. And I know sometimes if it belongs to your district, we're not able to share out. But if you could, I don't know, is that possible?
I can ask. My department head is lovely and amazing. I can ask her if it's okay. I also am the one that made typed them up and made them. So maybe she would be more likely to allow me to share them with people that ask. So, but I definitely would need permission because it's not mine.
Right.
But
right.
yes, I mean, I love them. Like I said, I wouldn't survive if I was somewhere that was, I don't know, more negative. I love that it's focused on the positive.
Okay. That totally makes sense to me. One more question, I think, about the rubric is, right, do you do no errors, a few that don't interfere, errors that interfere, and then like not understood at all? Or could you kind of describe the descriptors for us?
So and I don't have it in front of me, it would have been a smart idea to have that. But if I'm remembering correctly, the word errors isn't even on our rubric. Again, it's more about what they can do. So the way that category or that area is described on our rubric is would be easily understood by a native speaker. And then at the lower level, it might be worded as a native speaker would have a difficult time understanding. So again, to me, that's more on the positive and not even mentioning errors. Mm-hmm. Focusing on what they can do instead. But I can definitely check if I can share it and get more specific wording there too.
Of course. And you know, something that you just said made me think of, in case anybody is listening and maybe we can't get them shared later, whatever. I know something about the language that you just shared kind of rung a little bell in my memory. It made me think of the actful statements. I think they have
which I think I used. So it was a couple summers ago that my department head is the best. She asked me for help over the summer with typing these up. And I think we used we were pulling from a million different places to try to build our perfect rubric because we had discussed it in department meeting after department meeting after department meeting. And it felt like we were kind of just treading water because you don't get very much time during the school year. I mean, we would have a few minutes here and there during meetings. So she really wanted to dedicate the time over the summer, which was fine. And we were able to just focus on that, but pull from lots of other sources. So it's very likely that our wording would be aligned with ACTFL, of course.
So if anybody is looking for one, that might be a good resource just kind of in the meantime. And I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. You know, we maybe had like a few minutes in PLC.
Oh, before we go. Oh, wait, we forgot to talk. No, I'm saying in the meetings, that's what happens. They're like, wait, before we go, we have to decide, do we like this rubric? And everyone's like halfway out the door, like, oh, can we talk about this next time maybe? And then the same thing happens the next time. So it happened over the summer for us, but now we've used them. We haven't changed them. Oh, actually, we just found out our middle school program is expanding, which is amazing. Or I should say grammar school, which is amazing. But so maybe it'll change now because we'll need to move the levels. But anyways, we've used them since then. We love them. So
hey, well, that's awesome. Really glad to hear that. Okay, so I'm kind of been keeping an eye. I think we've got all the questions. If anybody who is watching has a few last questions for us, now would be a great time to put them in the comments. Erin, do you have any other things that you wanted to share about projects as we're wrapping up?
No, just if I can motivate you to please give your students choices, even if it's something that seems small. So like I said, if I wanted a project that addressed 3 different situations, I would literally give them 10 to choose from. Just give them some power, give them some freedom. They will really appreciate it. They might not tell you, but they really will. And they'll get to feel like they're actually making the project themselves and they'll be more proud of it. And that's what we want. So
I love that. Also, it makes me think of, well, you know, Liam and Katrin are pretty close in age. So today